Hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the Glue Guys podcast, episode 16. Some might call it the Arch Manning episode, okay? Never thought I would see the day again where Texas is platooning quarterbacks in a real game. I thought that died with the Case McCoy, David Ash era in like 2011, 2012, but got the job done last night. Arch Manning scored a touchdown on the ground, and I know that's what you guys all tuned in for, so that's my analysis of the Texas A&M game. Chad, why don't you holler at the people after LSU got a big dub last night as well?
Yeah, we were able to pick it up against Oklahoma 37-17. I guarantee you didn't think I was going to know that score off the top of my head.
Definitely did not.
Finished this season 8-4, which breaks my rule because I only follow them if they get 10 wins.
Wait, they don't have a shot at the playoff?
What?
Because they beat Oklahoma and Oklahoma beat Alabama. So
look, if I'm in the room, that's the argument I'm making. But unfortunately, I will say, I think I'm really excited to see what the actual how the next 10 days or so does end up playing out in college football. We're not going to get into it today because I would have to do way more research to even feel like I could compete with Ethan because he somehow turned into a college football head overnight. But I think this first year, the 12-team playoff is going to be super fascinating, more so about the build-up than it is the actual games. Just because I look at we did that episode where we talked about the history of the 4-team playoff and the lack of parity there was in those semifinals, I think is just going to be even more extended. When you're getting to this 12-team thing now. But I'm still excited. I'm still locked in. So that was a very long answer, but I'm doing good, feeling good. We're a couple of days after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so me and Chad have our first quarterly report is kind of what we're going to call it for the NBA. We're about 20-ish games in for everybody. Obviously, there's 82, so we're about a quarter of the way through for every team in the league. So we kind of have 3 topics to kind of get through. It's more of an introductory topic, our main topic, and then a closing topic. But I just kind of want to start it off with your thoughts. There's been a lot of talk sort of on social media, in mainstream media, all this other stuff, of people like the NBA ratings being very, very low this year, and kind of how they've been dropping for the past couple of years. So I kind of wanted to start off by getting your take. Like, what do you think is kind of a main reason or the main reason why no one's watching the NBA? And just kind of to preface it a little bit, the reasons I've seen, again, social media, mainstream media, has been the money aspect, as far as paying for your league pass, being able to watch every game or watch your team if they're out of market. The meaningless nature of regular season, us as fans are pretty culpable in that, saying, I don't care that your team won 65 games. If you don't win a ring, it doesn't matter. Players resting. No new American stars outside of maybe Anthony Edwards. And then also one interesting one I saw was NBA becoming a rich man's game. We're kind of seeing the league being flooded now with all these kids that came through playing private school basketball and being pushed through these huge AAU teams that traveled all the way all across the country, and sons of NBA players kind of dominating recruiting classes and stuff. Obviously, those kids come from privilege if their dads were playing the NBA. So if you could maybe pick out one or maybe 2 of the key reasons why no one's really watching the NBA day to day, night to night anymore, what would you say? Either of those reasons, or maybe you have your own.
Well, I do want to hit on a couple of them because I do think they're fascinating. One, the price point thing that you had discussed. I just don't think that is a factor because
I agree.
If we're being honest, NBA League Pass, which I do have and I think is the best deal for, if you really love a sport, I honestly think it's the best deal. I pay $99 for a full year where you can literally watch every single NBA game.
As a comparison point, the NFL Sunday ticket that I bought plus Red Zone, I think, was like $450.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So that's, just to watch all the NBA game or the NFL games on regular streaming services, you're talking about, Paramount, Peacock, Amazon Prime, ESPN for Monday Night Football. So you add those 4 up right there, in 1 month you're looking at $40. So,
and that's monthly payments rather than a one-time deal. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the NFL still cranks out viewership left and right. So payment wise, I don't think that could be a factor. the nothingness of the schedule, or I guess I don't remember what adjective you used exactly, but the
The
lack
meaningless
of.
nature of the regular season.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. See, I'm not an artist with words like that, so I couldn't have came up with that. But I think that definitely plays a factor, and I don't even think that's just unique to the NBA. I think that's just a simple math game, right? Like and I'm going to compare a lot of stuff to the NFL just because when you're looking at ratings and numbers and
That's
stuff,
the pinnacle.
viewership, yeah, the NFL is the gold standard, has been forever. I mean, it's comical. You watch like you look at just straight up viewership numbers. The biggest game of an NBA season will do like the same numbers as like Week 13 Thursday night,
Of
like
the two
between
worst
two.
teams in the league.
Yeah, yeah, between two AFC South teams, like it's like that.
In Munich.
Right, exactly. It's insane to see, but it's just that's just how it is. So the NFL is the gold standard for that. The NBA is obviously. I don't even know if I can say they're trying to catch up because I feel like they're just playing a different game, right? Like when you're talking, basketball, hockey, and soccer. I'm sorry, and baseball. Those seasons are just way longer. There's way more product to consume, so therefore it makes the night to night, a lot less important. I would say, right? I mean, and you can even look at it in the way NBA players play, right? Like I was watching. I was watching Pistons Sixers yesterday,
Damn.
and after the first 6 minutes, the Pistons were just like, "We're good." We're not. And granted, Cade was out, and then the Pistons have actually been okay to start the season. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm dumping on the Pistons, but that's just a very specific example of every game is not life or death. Like in comparison, I was watching that Chiefs Raiders game on Friday in the NFL, and the Raiders, who are 2-9, are sitting there killing themselves. Like Aiden O'Connell came back from an injury early to play in that game, and it's like, dude, if an NBA team was like 15-50, like their three best players wouldn't even know where the team facility is. Like they wouldn't even be allowed to get in.
Yeah, like
So
we were up on the Warriors earlier this year. I think it was
yeah,
like
60.
83 to 40 or something like that at halftime. And I didn't watch the game, but it was like I guarantee you by the middle of like you said, the first quarter, Steve Kerr was just like, "All right, Jonathan Kuminga, 25 shots tonight. Have fun."
Yeah, exactly.
Steph,
So
come sit next to me.
when the players are treating it that way, I think there's no doubt that the fan experience is gonna be that way as well. I think probably the thing that maybe I do want to hit on that you didn't bring up was just this idea that you don't actually have to watch the NBA in order to follow the NBA in 2024. And I think that's probably something that takes a lot of viewership away. Like if you're looking at, really 80s, 90s, 2000s up to even the 2010s for the most part. Like I think Twitter has taken off probably in the last decade. So up until, maybe when LeBron got to the Heat, yeah, my bad, X. Up to when LeBron got to the Heat, like if you wanted to follow the NBA, you had to go out, get league pass, you had to watch every single game because they weren't doing segments in 2010 on ESPN about the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Like that just wasn't something that was existing. And,
Well, even if you weren't watching the full game, too, like you would wake up in the morning before work or school and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, let me watch, 3
Yeah.
minutes of the Bucks Suns game last night," and Giannis looked like he had a really good game, and Devin
Yeah.
Booker, da da da. And you're at least watching the sport rather than just being like, "Oh, looks like Devin Booker had 50 tonight. Cool. Oh, it looks like
Yeah.
Luka had a really cool pass tonight. Cool." And you're not even really following it at all. You're just like seeing that stuff happened.
Right, exactly. And you're seeing maybe you follow a Bill Simmons type or a Ryan Russillo type, or like, if you're a Wizards fan, then you're following whoever the Wiz guy is that's breaking down the games or something like that.
Mhm.
So, it's just, I think that is probably the number one factor more than any of this stuff is that, especially in the regular season, a combination of the games not meaning as much and, for the first 30 to 40 games, you can just be like, oh, I'll follow the team. I'll watch a game here or there, but really I'm going to follow them on Twitter and I'll get locked in come playoff time. And then it's like, oh, shoot, we're the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny. I don't want to get into like a whole societal thing, but obviously our attention spans have gone way, way down, and so it's like
100%.
why would I spend my entire Tuesday night watching again that Bucks Suns game when I can just scroll on Twitter for 3 minutes and see what everyone has to say about it and just kind of go along with that. But yeah, just kind of want to get your thoughts quickly. Me and Chad have been thinking about trying to engage more with the narratives and things like that, trying to make sure that we are keeping you guys updated as much as going through our own segments. But going on to our quarterly report, me and Chad kind of are going to platoon this a little bit, and he kind of did a lot of the research as far as like your scores and your record and your home away splits, things like that. I'm kind of doing more of the organizational part. So I organized the teams that I wanted to talk about or wanted to hear Chad talk about into 5 different tiers. All right. So from bottom to top, worst to best is the panic button. These teams are just like, oh my God, launch the nukes. We're done. Houston, we have a problem. All right. Which it's going to kind of have an alternate name once we get into it. Then there's about what we expected. And you're like, we probably expected to be around this. And then, hey, that's pretty good. We're doing a little bit better than I thought we were going to do. And then, this is my favorite name for any of the tiers. Game ends, they just won. They're kind of all sitting in their lockers. The coach walks out of the locker room, and they're kind of like, hey, did you know we were going to be this good? But like, Jalen Green's turned into his teammates being like, hey, did you guys know that we were going to actually, win a couple of games this year? Because I did not know that when we came to training camp this year. So those are kind of my 5 tiers. Let's just hop right into it. Let's hop into it. Chad's got some team grades too. So again, we did these things independently. He graded his without my knowledge. I put these teams in tiers without his knowledge. So we're going to kind of see how much we line up based on how we think each season has gone so far. So my first panic button team is the Pelicans. All right. So Chad, what would you say that the Pelicans grade would be thus far this year at, what is their record? Aren't they like 3-12 or something crazy like that?
4-16.
4-16. Yeah, 4-16. At 4-16, what would you say that their grade is? And now I will also preface it by saying these grades are based on probably what we thought or what they thought they were going to be before they came in. So you can't just come in and be like, well, the Wizards are clearly an F- because they have 2 wins. It's like, well, they didn't think they were going to win the NBA title. So
yeah. No, that's a great point to throw in there, because I wasn't just going to say, hey, 5 best records, you guys get A's. 5 worst records, you guys are F's. Everyone else will fill in between.
Because even we might get onto it later. I don't have them up here, but like even the Celtics, I don't even know if they'd say just straight up we're an A, because we're one of the top 2 teams in the East. So
you're absolutely right. So it is more of a function of expectations compared to what they've done so far this season. So we got those American people that are watching, which if you're international, shout out to you, because we really
huge shout out, Ryder.
But yeah, you have the classic A, B, C, D, F, and then I actually threw in an incomplete also, which is something that you sparingly see on a report card, but does come up from time to time. So the Pelicans actually fall into that incomplete category for
injuries
me so far. Yeah, I was gonna say, really, the incomplete could also be injury. That is perfect right there.
So that makes sense, because again, I have a question for each team, and my question for the Pelicans is, again, kind of going back to my Jalen Green scenario. They really sit down in the locker room or when they're at the facility there or whatever, and all of them are thinking, are we actually any good if we're healthy? It's like, we don't know. Obviously, we're 20 games in, but there's just been a whole bunch. I saw you put a whole bunch of their injuries into the document. Why don't you tell everybody, what their injury problems have been?
Yeah, I mean, it started off Trey Murphy, Herb Jones missing to start the season, so that wasn't great. Probably your 2 best wing defenders. CJ McCollum's played 7 games. Trey Murphy has only played 7 games. Zion, of course, I mean, drink if you've heard of his injury problems before. But he's only played 6 games this season. And then the one that kind of breaks the back is DeJounte Murray, only playing 3 games with that broken hand injury. they made a huge investment trading for him this offseason, giving up a couple of first round picks, and then Dyson Daniels, who uh, genuinely looks like a defensive player of the year candidate from the guard position, which is super rare. So the fact that he's only played 3 games, and then Herb Jones, like I said, he's only played 4 this season. They're it's a great question. Can they actually be good when they're healthy? Because I still don't know. Like, I still had a whole bunch of questions about them when they were all healthy,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically. Brandon Ingram, Zion, CJ McCollum, and DeJounte Murray all kind of sharing the ball. I had my concerns about that, right? Like, I
Can you
didn't think
win
that was
games when you
something.
have 0 centers on your roster?
Yeah, and look, I'll be honest. The rookie that they have, Mitsi, who was like, "Oh, Mitsi's going to be our starter." It's like, cool. He's actually been okay for them. He's actually been okay. So, not sitting there saying they solved the center problem, but Mitsi has had some nice moments for him. So that makes me maybe slightly hopeful. But at the same time, I still think another reason why they get the incomplete grade is they have a trade to make too. Like, they just have
Mm.
to do something, whether that's packaging Ingram and McCollum together to get a couple of guys, or maybe just trading Ingram or just trading McCollum. Like, I feel like between Ingram and McCollum, one of those guys has to go, just because really the only thing they bring to the team is scoring, and they already have other guys who can score.
Do you think that happens now or nearer to the deadline to sort of drive the value of that asset up?
Well, here's the thing. The Brandon Ingram part is tough because I think he has literally. I mean, they tried to trade him all summer, and they just couldn't get a trade for him. Like, they couldn't find the right trade for him. David Griffin, the GM, said in the offseason, hey, this team is going to be a lot different, when the season starts. And everyone took that as, well, Ingram's getting traded.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, they just couldn't find a trade for him. So I feel like if they're going to move him, it's got to be closer to the deadline, where maybe a team is more desperate, or maybe a team. We talked about the expectations part of things. Maybe a team like the Spurs, continues to get better and better and better, and then before you know it, they're like 8th or ninth, and it's like, man, we could trade for this guy and maybe make a decent little playoff push or something like that. Not have to give up a bunch, because I don't even know if you'd have to give up a pick to get Brandon Ingram at this point. Um,
And we
so
like to
yeah, I
inform
would
as
lean
much as
more towards
anything
the
on this
deadline.
show. And
Yeah.
just for people listening saying, oh, why is your value different at the deadline versus not? Is because teams start to look at themselves right before the last time you can move for players and be like, oh, we're Brandon Ingram away from doing X. Whatever your goal is, it's like you kind of look at yourselves, through 50-ish games, and you're kind of like, if we get Brandon Ingram or a guy like Brandon Ingram, we can afford to give away these pieces for Brandon Ingram, and we're that away from achieving our goal. Whereas right now, at this moment, you don't know. Like Chad was saying, kind of about the incomplete part. Every team right now is incomplete. No team is going to be exactly what they are in May as what they are now, even if the players are the same. So you can kind of convince yourself come February time, oh, we're this piece away from being really good. So that's what drives player values up, or at least changes them around the deadline. Didn't mean to cut you off. Just wanted to throw that in there.
No, it's a great point, because it's perfect. Honestly, it's a perfect point because it's very true. And also, like, this is just a human instinct thing. Like, deadlines get stuff done more so than just like. I remember, I think it was uh, Ralph Waldo Emerson, or one of those transcendentalist writers, said
Hell of a point.
writers. Yeah, I know, right? Writers don't need more time; they need more deadlines, because that's just what gets stuff done. So I think that
That's
the
what I
trade
needed in
deadline is.
college.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone here, everyone that went to college can relate to. I mean, even in high school, for some people, where it's all right. The papers due at midnight. All right, it's 3 o'clock. Oh, I got plenty of time. Oh, it's 5 o'clock the night before. I got plenty of time. All right, it's 9 p.m. Let me go ahead and get started.
I think you're
Or
missing a key
something.
step in that. It's when you get the paper and they
Oh
say it's
yeah,
in 3 weeks, and you
yeah,
really
yeah,
convince yourself this time's going to be different. You're like, you know what?
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna write a little tonight. Actually, I'm gonna do an outline. I'm gonna watch this. I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna write a page of this 3-page paper this week, and then I only have another page next week, and then another page the week after. It's gonna be the easiest paper ever.
I wouldn't mind doing a study on, did the outline actually create um, people wait until the last minute to do stuff.
Like the idea of the outline.
Yeah, because I swear the outline is like, oh, well, shoot, I'll just do the outline real quick, and then the
it's
paper's
basically written.
Done. Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't mind if like CNN or The Atlantic or someone like that, if they did like a full deep dive on like how those two things are related. I wouldn't be mad.
So, kind of wrapping up on the Pelicans, because as you said, it's kind of incomplete. Not disparaging your analysis, but it's kind of a nothing analysis in the sense that it's like we don't know. Like all we're really saying is we don't know yet. What would you say their either expectation or what you think they're going to be doing for the rest of the season is? Do you think it move a piece or two and then you go back, you get to the play-in, or everyone gets back healthy and you're a true playoff team, or it's just done, or if you had to give a sort of prediction in that sense?
Look, I've been optimistic on the Pelicans probably for a half decade now, so I'm just going to straight up say they're done. They're just done. And the reason I say they're done, 1-9 on the road record is usually a tail. I mean, granted, they're not great at home, 3-7, so that's not great either.
Well, they won multiple games at home, so that's already a plus on the away record.
Exactly. So road record, I think, is more indicative of what kind of team you truly are. And then also the fact that they have the second toughest strength of schedule remaining is not kind either. So, being in the Western Conference, they're already like 4 or 5 games back just to the play-in. So, and we're only 20 games into the season. So that'll just get worse and worse. It's unfortunate because I really like Willie Green. I think he's a good coach, but they just need to, they really remind me of the Indianapolis Colts of the NBA, where for a while people were like, man, good roster, good depth, good roster, good depth. And then you look up and you're like, why haven't we made it or even come close to being a contender for like 5 years?
Yeah.
And so now you're in the stage where I think you have to start tearing it down and building back up. So, I would say just lottery team probably. They're gonna guaranteed in the next month they're gonna win like 4 games out of 5, and people will be like, oh, the Pelicans are only 6-7 games out of the play-in, and then 2 games after that 3 people will get hurt and it'll be over. So.
Last thing on the Pelicans, one of the most dangerous places you can be in sports is not horrible. Because again, I use my Arsenal fandom in sort of that 2018 to 2021 era to sort of change my perspective on all sports. Because you kind of convince yourself we don't need a full rebuild. You're like, Zion's pretty good, Brandon Ingram's pretty good, CJ McCollum's pretty good, and you start thinking we only need 1 or 2 pieces to do that, rather than we could blow this whole thing up and start again. So. Pelican fans, again, I don't know any, but I'm sure there's a decent amount of them that are like, instead of, blowing the whole thing up, all we need is 1 or 2 more things and we can be this. But I agree with you. I think it's kind of time to let go of this Brandon Ingram Zion era. Basically, the Anthony Davis trade era is kind of what you could call it.
Yeah.
And
really.
Just kind of start again. Speaking of starting again.
Speaking of.
I'll just start with my question because it'll kind of tell you what team it is. Is it time for the process part 2?
Philly.
And so I guess your grade for them would probably be either A or a B. So what would...
A or a B?
Wait, is Hinkie not the GM anymore? We're not trying to win 4 games a year anymore? Because I thought that's what was happening. My bad. I've been out of the loop.
No, they didn't. They're not still just employing all former Georgetown guys who couldn't even start there. Hollis Thompson not on the team anymore, unfortunately.
Hollis Thompson played 35 minutes last night.
Yeah, him and MCW aren't the backcourt anymore.
Damn, Tony Roden's not throwing up half-court shots down 43 anymore.
No.
That's sad.
No, he walked so Peyton Pritchard could run on the half-court shot thing, though. I will say that. On a serious note, though, talking about Philly, is it time to rebuild? The part that's crazy is I don't even know if you can.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Paul George has played 9 games so far this season. I actually thought he looked pretty good against Detroit last night, which congrats to him for looking good in one of the 9 games he's played in so far. So, between his health risk and the money that he's owed, Embiid's health risk and the money that he's owed, Sure, you can trade both of those guys. I mean, you could trade Paul
For
George
what?
for. Yeah, exactly. You can trade. Well, I'll tell you what you could do. You could trade Paul George for Brandon Ingram and C.J. McCollum. Like that's about what you could trade him for right
Trade
now.
Embiid for Kawhi.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I'm off Embiid, I don't even think I could do that. Like at least Embiid will at least talk to people. He might say the wrong thing, but at least he'll talk. Which that's a funny debate. Which one is worse, the guy who doesn't talk or the guy who just says everything wrong?
The guy who says, I'm
Uh,
actually the best player of all time.
Yeah, but Philly, I mean, they were my other incomplete. And look, it's injury. I mean, Embiid, like I said, 4 games. Paul George has played 9. Maxi's played 12. The reason for slight optimism in a rebuild scenario is their backcourt, Maxi and Jared McCain, who's
McCain.
looked
Yep.
awesome. Yeah, he's looked awesome. He's actually their third leading scorer right now. Like he's
Yeah,
looked
16,
really
16
good.
a game as a rookie. Me and you've talked about this before we've had the podcast, but like for any
Yeah,
rookie to come in and average more than 15 points a game is like
yeah.
not almost unheard of, but like very, very rare territory. So I know it's
There's
only
a
20 games in, but still very rare territory averaging that kind of scoring.
Yeah, the only exception being Michael Carter Williams on the Sixers, ironically, because that was the year they won 9 or like 12 games. So
I think you're selling my guy short, Tyreek Evans, when he averaged
Oh yeah,
when they engineered the entire last 2 months of their season to make sure he averaged 20.1 is what I'm looking at right now.
so they could get him to 25-5 for the Rookie of the Year. That was well, the Kings considered him winning Rookie of the Year as their trophy. So that was like an organization winning a ring.
Well, he
Basically.
followed that up by shooting 41% from the field the next year, which I didn't even know was legal if you're an NBA starter.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some starters who are shooting below that. I'm sure Ben Simmons can't be high, although he doesn't even take
Doesn't
shots
shoot the
anymore.
ball, yeah. So
Yeah. That's fair. That's
yeah.
fair.
So on the Sixers again. So what do you see? I know I'm asking you a lot of future questions, but like, what is the path over the next 2-ish years? Because you got Embiid and Paul George, two guys who are kind of in the same boat, like guys that have been really, really good. I mean, Joel Embiid just won an MVP in the very recent past. Paul George has been an All NBA player for most of his career. Hasn't quite hit the heights of maybe what he was projecting at around 2012, 2013 range, but still very, very good NBA player. Like, you would think even with those injury problems, they'd be able to scrape into the playoffs and maybe have like kind of a Lakers 2022 type of run where it's like, all right, we got into the playoffs. That's all we needed to do. We got Embiid and Paul George back. Let's see if we can upset the apple cart, especially in the East, because as much as I love my Cavs, them being the 2 seed and 17-3 is kind of telling of how bad the conference is. So, do you think that's a legitimate possibility to have that Lakers 2022 like run, or do you think it's just like it's never going to happen?
I can't say never going to happen because you bring up the great point. The East, I mean, there are four teams above 500 in the conference right now. So there are 4 teams. So as bad as it's been for Philly, they're like 5 games out of the 4 seed of the 5 seed or something like that. So I do still think that there is a realistic path for them to. I was trying to do the math. I was like, for them to get to 45 wins, they would have to go, 42-23 the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So that's like a really good record, I would say. And I don't know if they can get to that level. I mean, it's just so hard to say because like I don't even know what true analysis you can give because you don't even know what the 3 guys really look like together.
But I don't even
'Cause you
think
had-
that 45 wins needs to be the goal. I mean, like you just
Yeah,
said,
40 really.
I say, look at the Bulls the past couple of years getting that, what is it, the 10
Yeah.
seed or the 11 seed or whatever it is, the last team.
35 and 47.
That's what I
think they
mean.
won
Like,
2
if
years
you
ago.
really are like, all we need to do is get into the play-in, then,
Yeah.
35 wins, and that's only, 31, and, it's probably like even record from here on
500
out.
Yeah, they play 500 ball for the next 60 games. I mean, Yeah, they could. I could see it. I could see it.
But
But
like
then
you
at the
said,
same,
who's to say that Embiid and Paul George and
right.
McCain and Maxey will be able to coexist? I mean, that's three guys that, like we just said, McCain has been a good scorer. Is he gonna continue to be a good scorer when he's the fourth option,
Right.
at best, when all the guys are back?
No, exactly, exactly. So his role is going to be, neutered a bit. So it just, but at the same time, I think about it, and I'm like, man, Maxi is awesome. Like I love Maxi. Maxi's really good. Embiid is awesome when he's healthy and playing right, and
Especially in
which
the
I know, like,
playoffs.
which I know you can when you got to put five qualifiers on it, then the guy maybe isn't as great as you
When
thought.
he's
But
healthy, when he's the clear favorite in the series, when he's getting checked by one of the Pelican centers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or when Andre Drummond's going against him, which unfortunately is his team. It'd be great if whoever, like Philly did a thing where they projected out who they were going to play, and they're like, hey, can we trade you guys Drummond? We don't even need anything back. Just promise you'll play him. Uh, which he turned his ankle last night, so let me, hope Drummond's doing okay. Although I gotta say he was wearing some Jordan 10s, and I'm like, dude, if you're still wearing Jordans in NBA games in 2024, I don't think I don't think that you should be surprised if you're starting to have ankle problems.
I mean,
So
wearing tens in general is kind of OD, but
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It was two major red flags, and then it was like, and the dude's got a nose ring. That's the problem. The Sixers have too many guys with nose rings and shit. Like Andre Drummond and Kelly Oubre both with nose rings when they have like the starting lineup picture.
Jared
Not when they
McCain's
actually
got
have
the painted nail.
Yeah, like between those three guys, and look, I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with it because I don't care. But at the same time, like, there's no way
Can I
Kyle
care?
Lowry's. No, you can you can do that as much
Okay,
as you
I'll
want.
care.
But I'm just saying, there's no way Kyle Lowry and Nick Nurse are sitting there chopping it up in the locker room, looking at those three guys, being like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go to war." And look, Oubre's been good for him, and we already talked about McCain, so I don't know, I don't know.
Hey, I use Zeke as my case study. Ever since Zeke got that double nose ring junk when he used to put the smelling salts in his nose, he just hasn't been the same. So that's just kind
Yeah.
of my personal athlete's opinion.
The only guy who bucks the trend is Alvin
Alvin
Kamara.
Kamara, I knew you were going to say that shit.
I swear he had like three nose rings in
I
a
think
game.
it was here and the septum piercing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As he was running over Dallas, probably for like 200 yards, and of course he had a grill in, so can't forget that.
That's what they're missing.
Yeah,
So Pelicans and Sixers both in panic button mode for me, but Chad
yeah.
kind of giving them more of an incomplete grade. The last team that I have,
Well, just to be clear, I think the Pelicans are done. Like I think they're done for the season.
so it's
I'm
an
just
I,
saying,
but it's like you're a teacher, you're giving them an I, but like also you're just like ready to put in that they have an F in your class. It's like,
right.
hey, I'm going to give you a couple months to turn in my work, but I'm not holding my breath.
Gabe Lewis will give you to the end of the first semester to turn in the summer project.
No, Becky
Absolutely.
will.
Yeah, Becky Hamraz, exactly.
If you're
Shout out to
listening
her.
right now, shout out to you. In my last team that I have in the panic button, this is a team that doesn't have nearly as bad a record as any of these teams, but based on what expectations are, I'd probably say mostly from within, not really from analysts or people like that. And that is Milwaukee, the Bucks, because
Look,
they
I
are
was there.
they're 10-9 right now. However, they're 8-2 in their last 10. So that's the only thing that's kind of obviously given me hope. I'm a huge fan of the Bucks. Giannis and Dame are my two favorite non-Cavs in the entire NBA. So I really want them to do well. But when you have two guys that are we're in the top 75 all-time players. Giannis, I mean, by the end of his career, we could be talking about a guy top 20, top 15 of all time. You're not thinking, hey, let's make the playoffs. You're not thinking, hey, let's make sure we get home court in the first round. You're always thinking championship, especially when you fire your coach and bring in a guy like Doc Rivers, who I guess technically by definition is a championship level coach. You're kind of thinking we need to be winning the championship.
That was a hell of an endorsement for Doc right
I'm
there.
just saying, like, I mean, by definition, he did win a championship 16 years ago. So,
Yes, he did. And Celtics fans will remind you. That's for damn sure.
well, I kind of almost forgot for a second that they won the title in '08. I thought they were. I thought they got banned from winning titles after they won in '86 because didn't win one for like 40 years. But great franchise though, winning those titles with 6 teams in the league. But remember, LeBron's title doesn't count because everyone was in COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, the bubble, right? Exactly. I will say Milwaukee, exactly like what you say, 8-2 in their last 10. They are. I mean, they started the season horribly. It was like
it was them two and the Sixers nailed to the bottom of the league every time I looked at the standings.
Really, it was, and it's like, dude, there are teams trying. Like Washington was trying to lose and couldn't even have the same record as them to begin the season. But Doc is kind of. He started to settle on his rotation. I'm to the point with Middleton where he's almost in that, and not even close to the same level of player. So let me be careful. But he's in that Kawhi. No, I'm saying not in the same category as a Kawhi, but he's like in that Kawhi category for me, where it's like, hey, my evaluation of this team, like I don't even factor this guy into it anymore because I just really do not know. I mean, I swear. For the last month, it's been, well, Chris Middleton's cleared to play. He's just got to make sure he's feeling better and all that. And Middleton is a bit older and has had some injury problems in the past, so he's going to be, I don't feel like he's going to be the guy who is going to be rushing to get back on the court. And that's not even a knock on him. That's just, that's reality. But they've been able to find a good group with Prince in there. Gary Trent is now coming off the bench, which I thought he was going to be a starter for them. He just hasn't been as good as I thought, which has been a big, look, it's not the reason they're 10-9, but also I just think the Dame Giannis relationship is still a huge work in progress, which is crazy to say. And also, like, anytime like I hear either one of those guys talk, I'm like, I don't know if these guys are like best friends. And look, guys don't have to be best friends in order to win championships or make playoff runs. But it's weird because I feel like Giannis and Dame are two of the most likable guys in the league for kind of different reasons and kind of even some similar reasons. Like, I think they both have that work ethic piece. They have a loyalty aspect, I guess. And so I think that makes them really likable. But then when you talk about, or when you hear them talk about kind of each other and stuff, it's like I don't get the feeling that these guys are getting a summer vacation or going on vacation together or anything like that. So,
yeah, Giannis has had like a really weird time of it ever since he won the title. It's kind of been a lot of like not pouty, but like kind of just like, yeah, we should be better, but we're not. And it's just like
and the thing is, that's the thing. Like, if Giannis next season, like 5 years ago, if you would have been like, hey, Giannis is going to request a trade, I would have been shocked. Now, if you're like, hey, Giannis is going to request a trade, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, probably.
Exactly.
Maybe.
So that's what my question for this team was, kind of getting into that. Who will go in what order? Dame, Doc, and Giannis. Because obviously in our modern, and I again preface this, in our modern NBA, it's always, we have 2 stars, we're not playing well, goodbye coach. Because that's what they did with Bud. So obviously that's the first obvious domino, but they already did, like I said, they already did that with Bud, and they did that, what was his name? Adrian Griffin.
Yeah, Adrian Griffin.
And so they've already done that with 2 coaches. So it's like, at what point do we point at one of these players and be like, hey, it's not working, go somewhere else? Especially for a 34-year-old guy that's 6 feet tall. That's not shooting threes as well as he used to.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to that Pelicans and Sixers conversations we've been having, is like, what are you getting if you're trading Dame? What are you getting back in a trade? Because I don't think you're getting anything crazy. I mean, it'd be hilarious to see a Dame for Paul George trade or something like that, which, fuck, I'd talk myself into. I would talk myself into because I still think all the guys that would be affected in that trade are awesome. But it's just like so difficult to kind of get to that pinnacle and get to that level. The pinnacle I sip on.
Yeah.
But I just, so if you're saying which one is first of that group, I'm actually going to give you the curveball answer. I think it's Giannis.
Demanding a trade.
Yeah, I was just I think it's Giannis. If if they go out in like the first round this year, or maybe it's an ugly second round loss, and then he's like, hey, like have fun. This is now Dame's organization. Dame, you got a franchise again, and it's one that no one else is going to care about once Giannis is traded. So
The only counter that I kind of have to that is sort of the Dirk-esque part of it, where it's like he might just look at it and be like, "I did win a title here." Like, so
yeah, but he's
well, which I'm not saying it's going to be automatic disqualifier, but I'm just saying like I could definitely see himself in his mind being like, "All right, I need to get out of here. I need somewhere new." But then he kind of looks at it for real, and he's like, "I mean, these people did take me from nothing into being a star, and obviously as a European he's not going to have any domestic ties to anywhere else. A lot of times when people demand trades, it's like I want to go to this place, or I want to be back home, or I want to be something something on top of the basketball reasons.
Wouldn't it be great if
Athens franchise?
Yeah, I was gonna say demanded a trade to Olympiacos or something like that. They give up Nick Calathis. They can give that up as part of the package.
As long as Costa Koufos is coming back the other way, then I think that we could get something done. But that's the only thing that kind of holds me back from like the Giannis trade thing is like I feel like the foreign guys, when they really, really get accepted by a certain American community, since they don't have any other American ties, then they're not. A lot of times they're more likely to stay loyal. Especially again, like I said about Dirk and now Giannis. Like I've won a title here. I've not gotten to maybe the heights I want to get to, but I've at least accomplished that thing that everyone is chasing all the time, allegedly.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think this is kind of like that slight crossover point from the non-American players, more of that Dirk mold, like you said about the loyalty and stuff. Even Nash, I mean, technically, I mean, he grew up in played some time in the U.S., but he was still loyal to the Phoenix Suns for a lot longer, maybe than he could have been. Some other guys. So, but now we're in this new generation of like, hey, there are more foreign guys that are the best guys, and there are just more guys requesting trades or more guys moving around. So it's bound to happen at some point. It just hasn't yet. So, but I don't think we should use that as like the rule of like, oh, well, American or foreign guys don't ask out.
Fairs.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That'll be probably an off-season discussion.
So
where Giannis is going?
Did you have a grade for the Bucks, or were there another eye for you?
No. The Sixers and Pelicans were my only eyes. I actually put Milwaukee. I gave them a D because just like I said, or like you mentioned, if it would have just been the first 10 games of the season, it would have been a raging F. But they've looked way better, over the past 10 games, so that bumped them up a letter grade. But still, at the same time, you're 10-9, and you came into the season with title expectations. I can't have you a C or anything like that. So.
Of course. So it'll be interesting to see how they are at the halfway point. Again, because that turn in form, is it going to be a not permanent, but like, are they going to kind of operate at this winning 60 to 65% of their games, or is it going to be just this is a hot streak and they're going to kind of go back to just being a 500 team, which I mean by definition they are right now.
Right.
I want to move into the next tier. Houston, we have a problem. And as I was making this tier, I kind of noticed a similar pattern, and you can tell me what it is once I tell you the teams. Okay?
Okay. Talk to me.
T-Wolves, Mavs, Nugs, and Pacers. We're the four teams that I really highlighted in this tier. And what do they all have in common?
Nugs, Mavs, and Pacers. I actually don't know what you would say all four of those teams have in common.
I call this the Allen tier, a.k.a. the hangover tier.
Oh, okay, hangover. Yeah.
This is the hangover tier right here. Because
I got you.
The T-Wolves have the Western Conference Finals hangover. Mavs have the Finals hangover. Pacers have the Eastern Conference Finals hangover. And the Nuggets can kind of still claim having a finals hangover. Kind of where I've gotten all of these teams at in my mind, where it's like they're clearly good teams. They just had a big run last year, within the last year or two, and they're still kind of running off of the fumes of that. Now, there is a lot of history in the league of teams having that very slow start the next year after, especially teams that aren't, like, quote-unquote, used to it. Like, if the Heat in the early 2010s, like, would have a huge hangover like this, it'd be like, well, that's crazy because they've been to the finals 4 straight times. That's kind of weird. Or, like, when the Cavs and Warriors were going to the finals every year. It's like, see, that's weird. But when it's a team that's never, like the Hawks, like, it's like when they, in, like, 2014, 2015, it's like, the next season, they're probably going to start pretty slow because they're not used to making a deep run in the playoffs or being a really good team or whatever it is. But these teams are all pretty. They might have players that have experienced that before, but as overall teams, the Timberwolves have never experienced that with this current group. The Pacers haven't with this current group. The Mavs technically have, but it's been kind of more on-off switch rather than like consistently good. And then the Nuggets, it's just kind of like, I put here, they're kind of a LeBron-like contender where we just assume they should be pretty good because of Jokic. So, as a collective, I would say that they're a hangover tier. So, but let's go team by team. Let's start off with your finals pick, the T-Wolves. Again, all my questions for them is mainly the hangover questions, but how would you grade their season so far, and what has sort of been the weird part of their season as far as, Julius Randle?
Yeah, yeah. The Timberwolves, I have a D as well. Like you said, 9 and 10, and I had them as a finals pick. Both of my finals picks are a combined my 2 finals picks are combined 19 and 19 right now. So, not feeling too great about that one. Maybe I shouldn't even be doing these grades. But with the Timberwolves, I think the thing is, there's still a bit more to understand with the Julius Randle, Anthony Edwards dynamic now. Randall just has some games where, like we talked about earlier about the Pistons just being like, nah, the other day. I swear Randall just has games where he goes into it and is like, I'm just going to shoot jumpers today. Like, I'm just going to shoot 20-footers and a couple of threes. And then he has other games where he's really good and he goes to the basket. And, it's that perfect thing where, like we talked about, when the trade was first made, where, hey, you have 2 guys shading over to Anthony Edwards. He throws it to Randall, and then Randall's good enough to beat a 4-on-3 and either get a great shot, close to the basket for him, or he's able to dish and create for someone else, which I think is an underrated part of his game. And it's looked good in spurts, but then at the same time, like, they've had a lot of games where I think their close game record has been pretty bad, which I think that's a clear sign of a team that still has to understand playing together a bit more. Mm-hmm. And I think the dynamic of, like, who's closing games from Minnesota is still a huge dynamic in question, because between Randall, Naz Reid, and Gobert, you can probably play 2 of those guys together at the end of games, and like Naz Reid is a lethal offensive threat. Mm-hmm. Like, he just is, and he's a good enough switchable defender that or incredible enough switchable defender that he can stay out there in the last 4 minutes of a big game. Yep. But then it's like, hey, Gobert is the second highest paid dude on this team, and it's actually been okay. Like, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, Gobert is terrible, whatever. Like, he has a role, he has a purpose, and without him out there, their rim protection defense is just horrible. So he's kind of essential, and Reed is really good, and Randall's like the new guy on the block. So I feel like he's
kind of the odd man out.
Yeah, kind of. Although he's still closing games and stuff, and he's still getting his touches.
Because then you still got guys like Jaden McDaniels, Conley, Dante DiVincenzo on given nights is going to be like, man, we can't take him off the floor because he's hit 5 threes already.
Yeah, McDaniels has been terrible to start the season. He's turned it around like the last week or two, but seriously, the first 10 games he was shooting in like the 20s from 3.
I mean, somehow, some way, he's averaging only 10 this year, which is the same as last year, but it's like you felt like this is going to be the year where he takes that next step because, in the playoffs last year, his name kind of got thrown in. I mean, he was part of that meme when Anthony Edwards said they have who did they say they have?
KD.
They have KD, but we have Jaden McDaniels. But it was true. Like, it was like Jaden McDaniels is legitimately hooping right now. And it kind of felt like a kind of coming out party for him, but now he's kind of reverted back to what he was as a player, like regular season last year. So hopefully getting to see him step forward. Because the part that sucks is I really, really like this team. And the thing that they really have on their side is that they have maybe one of a couple like real stars in the league that are really going to take every single regular season game seriously. Like Anthony Edwards is not one of the guys, like you said, they might have individual guys, but Anthony Edwards is definitely not going to be the guy that's like, we're down 10 in the first quarter, I'm done for the night, guys, see ya. He's going to be like, we're down 10 in the first quarter, even though we're playing in Washington, I'm not losing to the fucking Wizards tonight. All right, let's go.
No, it's a great point because they had a Lakers game maybe 2 Fridays ago, I think it was, where they were down 10 or 15, something like that in the first half, and Edwards got legitimately pissed. Like, he was yelling at guys on the court and stuff, and they came back and I think they actually came back and won the game. Like,
Yeah.
So you're spot on with that. That's why I'm still really optimistic about Minnesota, because they have a guy who's going to take it super serious, and they still have enough talent. Like, they have enough talent. It's just a matter of figuring out how the talent fits together. So
Right.
I'm still bullish on Minnesota.
Yeah, I love Minnesota too because Anthony Edwards, again, along with Dame and Giannis, is probably my big three of non-Cavs players in the league. Those are the guys that I really, really enjoy. And so I really hope that it works out for them. So the Mavs. My big question for them is Kyrie still the most skilled player of all time? That's obviously joking, but again, like kind of all my questions for this tier kind of all boiled down to finals hangover, like how much is that playing a role, and then how does their team sort of evolve? I think with them, they're kind of in that weird tier where they're kind of just like, you know what, we'll just turn it on March 1st and start playing like a real team, because they kind of showed it at the in the playoffs in the business end of last year that they're kind of like, not we can turn it on whenever we want to, but it's like when you have Kyrie and Luka on your team, you can kind of just be like, look at each other and be like, all right, let's start winning games now, get some good playoff seeding, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, this is, I think, the 4th or 5th straight year that Luka's come into the season as the MVP favorite, and it was like, oh man, Luka doesn't look in shape to start the season. And people all get surprised, even though, like I said, this is the 4th or 5th year in a row of it happening. Look, here's the thing we know about Luka. He's just not a guy who takes the regular season super serious, especially the start of it. He's a guy who plays himself into shape. And that's not a knock on him, because clearly he's great at it.
The Chris Paul corollary.
Honestly, he's one of the 3 or 4, but Luka's one of the 3 or 4 best guys in the league, no doubt about it. And I think the Clay addition has been a bit weird. He's basically been relegated to a stand in the corner and shoot threes guy. We'll always. It's funny, they'll always do that one. Hey, we'll make one play, or we'll call one play for you. To make you feel like you're in the offense. We'll call like one shot a half, where it's like, hey, here's the Clay play. But it's like, dude, that's just like, it's not going to trick him. He was like the secondary offensive part of
a dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was, the first couple years for sure before KD got there. He was like the true second option. So I think the fit has been weird. And then, like you said, like they feel like more of that. They feel like more in that Nuggets role than the Nuggets, the part you were talking about, as far as, hey, we know who we are. We can kind of turn it on when we need to. And look, the thing is, they're still up there in defense, right? They're 7th in defense right now. If they were slipping defensively, then I think maybe that would be a cause for concern. I do want to highlight a good friend of the podcast, Justin Ned. He was saying how connected the Mavs look when they're without Luka, which he did not play. He hasn't played in the last couple of games, actually. How connected they look, especially defensively. So we kind of saw in the playoffs last year that one of the reasons they made that push was Luka and Kyrie were super locked in defensively and super keyed in defensively. So if Luka, maybe it's a thing where Luka, it sounds stupid to say, but where Luka can only do that. He can only be locked in defensively for 3 months. So it's like, let me wait till April and then start that up. Which, for a guy who carries as much of the load on offense as he does, maybe it's possible. But I wouldn't be concerned with Dallas. I gave him a C grade, kind of, maybe slightly below what I expected, but still right about there.
Yeah. So let's stay in the West with the Nuggets. Again, my kind of assessment of them, again, is that kind of LeBron-like contender where you just assume, well, they have Jokic, so they kind of have to be thrown into that contender category. His numbers have been absolutely out of control this year. I think he's averaging not just a triple double, but like not even close. Really, it's he's right now 30, 13, and about 10.5 assists. Like it's not even like he's averaging 20 points, 10.1 rebounds, and 10.2 assists. Like it's really not even close to not being a triple double. And he's I wanted to get your opinion quickly on his MVP case because again, going back. Wanted to be a little bit more involved in the narrative talk. We don't want to be exactly, all wrapped up in that stuff. But I've seen a lot of people talking about he can't be the MVP because this is what we expect of him, and it's kind of what he's doing, is what I've seen, and it's kind of like. And I've also seen people say the stupidest thing, which is y'all said that Westbrook was stat padding when he was triple double. So how is Jokic not doing the same thing? Kind of wanted your take on that and kind of. What happens to him, like, if he continues with these numbers, wins MVP, and wins 4 out of 5, which has only happened, I think, twice in NBA history? Like, do we have to start legitimately considering him as maybe one of the top 10 players of all time, at least as far as, his projection right now?
Yeah, I mean, great point to point out. Sorry, I was about to say put out, but we don't want to do that. Kareem and LeBron, the other two guys to win 4 out of 5 MVPs. It's so crazy. Like the guy is just so damn good. And I know that's like, oh hey, thanks for coming on the pod, Chad, breaking some news. But the guy is like, I saw there's a TikTok page which can't remember the name, but this dude, he does probably the most awesome like general stat stuff out there in the business, and it's awesome. So I'll figure out who it is and shout him out next time because I really love it. But he was saying, like, doing the numbers on the Jokic offensive rating with him in the game versus out of the game. With him in the game for the Nuggets, they have the best offensive rating in NBA history. Without him on the court, they have the worst offensive rating in the entire NBA.
Who's their second option?
I mean, shit. Michael Porter Jr. is their second leading scorer right now. I mean, maybe you could consider Jamal Murray the second option since he's maybe the second initiator, but he hasn't been shit this year to start.
That's what I mean, and it's just like it makes it even more insane that like even as much I love LeBron so much, but like even in LeBron's years, maybe you could say like his first Cavs stint he had similar to that, but the league wasn't as good. But ever since then he's had. D Wade with him. He's had Kyrie with him. He's had AD with him. And so it's kind of like even
outside of 2018, I guess.
That's what I mean. And so, well, he had Isaiah Thomas with him then. So
and George Hill, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So it was. So I mean, even those great players. Obviously, guys like MJ had like a Scottie or Kareem having like a Magic and things like that. And you're kind of seeing it as like. How can this dude be this good? Again, offensive rating greatest in NBA history with a guy that's not a legitimate. He doesn't have a legitimate All-Star next to him.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, and I do want to say some of their other guys, some of their other because the Nuggets are kind of like Milwaukee light in the sense that they started the year off really weird, and then they put together a nice stretch. But I think Christian Brown has really found his spot in the team. Is averaging 16 for him, so he's putting up some good big numbers. This has all kind of been this push for him has been with Aaron Gordon out of the lineup so far, which are 6-4 with him out. So I've always kind of thought Gordon was a very replaceable player. I thought the contract they gave him over the offseason was kind of shocking. So I'm glad to see Brown and then Peyton Watson kind of stepping in, filling minutes. Watson, I still would like to see score a little bit better, but overall, I think their rotations are starting to fall into place. And then when Gordon comes back fully healthy, they have that connected starting lineup with Brown kind of in there for the KCP role from the title team. The chemistry, the institutional know-how with them is just crazy. And that's really all it takes with Jokic because he just needs to know, hey, I need you to look when I pass you the ball. That's it. And be standing in the spot that you're supposed to be standing in. And Jokic can just make the rest happen however he wants.
And even funnily enough, the impact of your boy Hustle Westbrook. I mean, he's coming off the bench. He's averaging,
Yeah.
12 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. His field goal percentage is legitimately awful, but his three, like, he's shooting 39% from the field, but he's also shooting, but, but he's also shooting 37% from three, which I think if you could get a Russell Westbrook that could even shoot, 35% from three
Yeah.
as a second
Yeah.
unit initiator, I think that could be something that could be legitimately valuable come playoff time, where it's like, hey, everyone's putting in their second unit and we just need to, match their points or match their, we don't even need to win the minutes that Jokic is off the floor or that Jamal Murray is off the floor. Just don't lose
Just not
them.
get killed.
Yeah, don't get murdered. I think that could be a legitimate thing. Again, me and you have been pretty well documented throughout, the past couple of years as legitimate Westbrook haters. But I mean, I gotta show him some love right now.
I completely agree. I do just want to give a shout out to the worst take I've seen this week, and you know exactly what it is because you ended up liking the tweet, my response to the tweet. Someone calling Westbrook one of the top, or no, didn't even say top 10. He said one of the greatest passers of all time. Guys, don't fall into that dumbass take where you just look at assist numbers and say, hey, these are the 10 highest assist totals. These are the 10 best passers in the history of the NBA. Westbrook had the ball in his hands every possession for like 5 straight years.
And it was all slash and kick. It was literally like, I'm going to run as hard as I can in the basket. Someone's going to collapse, and I'm going to throw it to a guy wide open. That's not great passer.
Yeah, exactly. It's putting up really great numbers. And look, some of the stuff that Westbrook's done, I mean, look, I don't want to do a whole 15-minute Westbrook synopsis, but the reason he is the guy that he is historically is because of the hard-headed nature and the effort and all that he has put in both on and off the court. So I can't kill him for having that mindset. And also, you talked about the Anthony Edwards as far as like who are guys who are going to care every game. Westbrook is going to care every single game that he plays, unless he's on defense. Then he just doesn't give a shit. He just goes for steals and stuff. But he's going to care every single time he's out there. And I think that's a good thing for a team that has, Jokic, Porter, Murray. Like, those guys are all passive. I mean, I wouldn't even put Porter in the leader group with the team. But, Murray and Jokic, they're not really vocal guys. So, I mean, you have to have someone who kind of comes in there with a little bit of that fuck you. And Westbrook is definitely that guy. So, he's been decent for him.
Yeah, so Westbrook, one of the best passers of all time, which also makes AI one of the best defenders of all time because of his steal numbers. And Hassan Whiteside, one of the greatest rim protectors of all time because of his block numbers. But I'll stop. But the last team I wanted to get into in this kind of tier, we can start flying a little bit quicker if but I wanted to talk about the Pacers a little bit. Me and you talked on the phone the other day about kind of the downfall of Tyrese Halliburton this year. So what's kind of your assessment of this year? Again, Eastern Conference Finals hangover of him and the team so far this year. Bless you.
Yep. Pacers, I think, have a legitimate claim for most disappointing team in the NBA to start the season. Honestly, it's feeling a bit like that Hawks Eastern Conference run from the Trae Young days when he went up. Well, he's still there, but the Trae Young versus Giannis Eastern Conference Final. I think that was 2021 because that was the year after COVID. And the Pacers are starting to look that way. And you hit the nail on the head as far as they just don't look, or Halliburton just doesn't look as good. He doesn't have that burst going to the basket. He's not as consistent shooting as he was to start last season because these problems even started showing up in the second half of last season, and they've just kind of continued on to this year. He's been 41+% each of his first 3 years in the NBA. Last year was 36%. This year down to 34%, and he's taking more and more. Like now he's taking 9 threes a game, shooting 34%. That's just not a recipe, and his field goal percentage is abysmal. Like you talked about, I don't remember who it was, but you said, how can you shoot 41% as a starter? He's literally at 40.9%. So it's right there. And he's the thing that kind of makes the Pacers special when they can be special. I think Mathurin has come back from his injury that he had last season. I just love Mathurin. He's just a guy who doesn't care what's kind of going on out around him on the court. Is just a guy who's just going to just drive the shit out of the ball to the basket. He's starting to make threes this year, so that's kind of set him off. And that's the thing. Like, I like the Pacers guys. Like, I really like a lot of the players they have. They just haven't performed to the level that I expect. That's why I think they're the most disappointing team. Because some of these other teams that we're putting in like D's and F category, like they can have a specific injury that you can point to, or maybe a specific trade that they made, or a couple off-season shakeups, where it's like, all right, they're gonna have to figure out this, this, and that. The Pacers, their off-season shakeup was adding Ben Mathurin, who was a guy who had been on the team for 2 years already. So just getting him back healthy. So I don't know. I'm pretty disappointed in Indiana right now. I actually gave them an F, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about them, more than we already have.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Again, going back, we are definitely grading these off of what our expectations was for this team, and it was a a younger team, a team that we thought maybe could take another step going into this season. They just haven't done that so far. So I had a couple teams listed for about what we expected, but you said you wanted to deep dive into one of these teams, so we'll kind of focus on them. I also had the Jazz, the Trailblazers, the Kings, teams like that. But
real quick on the Blazers, just because I know we said we're moving through, but I actually watched the Blazers a couple of nights ago. The level of talent on these bottom tier NBA teams is like
insane.
Unheard of, right? And like the Trailblazers legitimately played 7 or 8 guys where I was like, this guy could be like a decent NBA player, and it's like, how is this team 8-12?
Yeah.
And mind you, one of those guys was not Scoot Henderson that they played. So, but like Shaden Sharp doing really good scorer. Simon's really good scorer. Jeremy Grant has turned into a guy who just wants to shoot threes instead of do anything else. So that's probably unfortunate. But then Klingon, man, their rookie center from UConn, like, he's been a really good rim protector. Exactly what he was advertised to be. In the game I watched, he had 20 rebounds, 0 points, which was a classic me stat line from JV. So, I had to appreciate that. But, yeah, Portland, they're not going to rip up any trees this year, but they could be fine. They could be a fun team in a few years.
Yeah, I think Chad's stat line goes underrated. 0 points, 20 rebounds, but also shot 6 free throws. So that was also my favorite part.
Hey, man, it was 0 for 8. If you're going to get it right.
So going to the Clippers, we talked just before we started recording, and you said, I want to talk about the Clippers. You said particularly you wanted to have a little Harden rant and a little bit of Ty Lue praise, which as a Cavs fan I can always appreciate. So I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, the Ty Lue praise is simple. I think that dude does the best job with a rotating roster of any guy in the NBA. Like, a couple years ago, Paul George and Kawhi were damn near out for the entire season. Norman Powell was their go-to crunch time scorer, and they almost ended up making the playoffs. And I know the Clippers spend more than pretty much any other team, so they have a lot more depth. No, seriously. I mean, salary-wise, they're it's like them and Phoenix right now, and then Golden State, and then everybody else. But they are kind of, like a team where if 2 guys are missing, it never kills them. Like, no matter what 2 guys are missing for the Clippers, it never kills them. I mean, their starting lineup right now, for the past handful of games is Harden, Chris Dunn, Amir Coffey, Derek Jones Jr., and Ivica Zubac. Like, that is not, we just talked about the talent of, a Portland. Honestly, if you put the Portland starting 5 and then the Clippers starting 5 side by side, and you were like, hey, which one of these teams is, definitely better, you'd be like, Clippers, maybe, But, Ty Lue's got them, they're 4th in defense right now, so they're guarding the hell out of the ball, which is awesome, when you have a guy like Harden. And then Harden and Norman Powell are just kind of running the offense, which Norman Powell, I've said it before, probably the best movement shooter in the entire NBA. Dude just is a sniper. But now he's but now he's gotten the ability to show his overall scoring, all 3 levels. Can get to the rim and finish way better than what he's shown the last couple years. So, he's averaging 23 a game for him. And then on the Harden part of it, his ability is just hey, give Harden some guys and let him run the offense. It's okay, we'll win 45 games. It just is I never forget when he was in Houston. They had like his first or second year. Their starting lineup in the playoffs was because this is when Dwight got hurt. It was Harden, I think Jeremy Lin, Chandler Parsons, Joey Dorsey, and Demontis Montejunas. And it was like, why is this team in the playoffs? And I think they made the West Finals that year.
Yeah.
It was like, why is this team even in the playoffs? And then they just throw a bag of shit together, and then Harden's like, all right, I'll carry him. So he's been doing it for about a decade. Obviously, he's not to the same level he was, 5 years ago.
I was looking at the roster, and I was like, man, if it was 2017, this team would literally be a title contender, man. They got Harden, they got Batum, who at that time was considered like a real asset. They got Kawhi, they got PJ Tucker. They got, if they had like a rookie Mo Bamba or something like that, this would be.
I was gonna say rookie Chris Dunn, like, hey, he's a trade asset.
That's what I mean. Like this team would be a legitimate title contender if it was 2017. Yeah. Unfortunately for them, it's 2024 and Kawhi doesn't play basketball, which is unfortunate. But and PJ Tucker's 345 pounds, so
yeah. Quick shout out to Zubats. That dude has just continued to get better and better to the point now where I think he's like the third best player on the whole team.
Yeah, I love Zubats. So especially, I loved his work in. Never mind. I was literally about to say I loved his work in LA, but I mean, he's still in LA.
He's been in LA for a little while.
It's okay.
So
it's all right.
He's like taking the torch from Gortat. Zubats says. I don't even know how to transition from that, but we're gonna find a way.
Yeah. So, yeah. Again, the Clippers they're about what we expect. What would you give them as a grade? It sounds like you're a little bit higher on them than maybe others would be, just because of what they've done with what they have.
Yeah. I got the Clippers. I gave them a B. I gave them a B because not only are they 12-9. But they've played the seventh toughest schedule so far. So it's they're beating decent teams. So I really like the Clippers.
All right. So yeah, Chad likes the Clippers. I like that. I mean, I'm excited. Yeah. The league's more fun when the Clippers are pretty decent.
7-game losing streak loading for them now.
Exactly. So let's move on to our next tier. Hey, that's pretty good. Yeah. This is the most interesting one to me.
Can we change it to kind of good?
Kind of good. Yeah, from Rush Hour.
Yeah, exactly. Camel Zump.
Just very quickly. All right, just yes or no, 30 seconds. Spurs, can they win a playoff series?
Right now, no. With a trade, possibly. They need more on-ball scoring.
Okay, so I just wanted to quickly touch on that. I don't want to give a deep dive on them, but the Spurs, I saw their record, and I was kind of like, maybe if they could do one or two things, Wemby take a step forward in the playoffs, get more minutes, maybe.
Everyone freaked out the first 6 or 7 games when Wemby didn't look like prime Hakeem Olajuwon mixed with Dirk Nowitzki.
Mixed with KD.
Right, exactly. But now he's did exactly what he did as a rookie, but on a much quicker timeline. Wemby is going to be fine. He's unbelievable. I watched him in the Lakers Spurs game. He's unbelievable. He changed the whole game.
Oh, the Lakers Spurs game the same night as the Tyson fight, because I watched that game too.
Yes.
And this dude literally did a tween step back pull up 3, and it was literally the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but yeah, I don't want to really talk about the Spurs anymore, because every time I talk about the Spurs, it just turns into Wemby glaze. So I'm just gonna quickly move on. The Suns.
Fair enough.
I'm excited about the Suns, funnily enough, because their with versus without KD numbers are insane. You have it up here. Oh, yeah. KD's missed 7 games. They're 1-6 without him, which means they are. I think they won last night too. So I believe with him they are now 10-2. So he's been great. I mean, KD is just such a weird. Like when it's the year 2060 and you're talking to your grandkids about KD, I have no idea what I'm gonna say, because it's like KD, it's like unstoppable offensive player, pretty good defender in his day, athleticism, obviously his size, and once he gets into that little drive, pull up from the elbow type shot. Like it's literally probably
impossible.
I mean, it's more unstoppable than like the Kobe elbow fadeaway. What he had like the early 2010s, late 2000s.
He's just bigger.
Yeah,
no one can contest.
And
it.
it's just, but then you kind of just sit there and be like, so why didn't he win like 9 titles?
Right? Yeah, I know. It's
which
kind
is
of
not
that,
fair. Which is not fair. But it's just like that
right.
feeling that I have on the inside. It's like, how was this dude never the best player in the NBA?
It's like that perpetual argument that we kind of have more so in soccer, I would say, where it's like, who's the most talented player of all time versus who's the greatest.
Right.
Like, most talented, I mean, you just went through it. Like, I don't know if there are things on the basketball court that KD can't do. And usually when you look at most talented, the first thing you go to is scoring ability and offensive, well-roundedness. And he's, about as well-rounded an offensive player as there's ever been in the NBA. I genuinely think that. Which is kind of a big claim that I just gave him, but kind of shocked myself there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a great question because I don't know. Like, are we going to remember Are we going to remember all those things we just talked about? Like, the 50-point triple-double against the Bucks in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the 40-point triple-double against the Bucks when he was like a one-man team basically, or all the great games he had with Golden State or the Thunder, or, him going from 20 points a game as a rookie to 25 a second year to 30 his third year and being the youngest scoring title winner? Or is it going to be, hey, you remember all those years where he got bounced in like the second round or the third round when he was the title favorite? Hey, what's up with all these years where he just didn't have playoff success after Golden State?
Remember when we thought that his Thunder team was going to make the finals literally every single year of the 2010s, and he didn't make it back until he was on Steph and Clay and Draymond's team.
Right, exactly. So KD doesn't help it at all because he just kind of overcomplicates it with some of the decisions he made. But I think he's just in a really nice position right now in Phoenix, and I think this is like I don't want to sit here and pull some first take shit out and say, oh, this season could define KD's legacy. But like, if he gets one in Phoenix and is like the best, because I think right now he's probably a better player than Booker. Like I think he's a better player than Booker. It's been better this season, and I just think current standing in the league, he's better. So this will be, KD's title if they win a ring, and we're a few steps ahead of considering them. Hey, what are they, a title team? But just projecting out, like this could be a really big year for KD, and as you said, the record with him is really nice.
So on a scale of not shocked at all to Kelly Olynyk after that, after the Bruins scored the overtime winner against the Leafs, frozen, what are you if I say to you right now, hey, I just came back from June 15th, 2025, and the Suns just won the title?
Won a title? God, I mean,
like just by that reaction, you're not like blown away. You're not like falling out of your seat. Like no way.
No, because I don't think.
Which is something I don't think you could have said even 3 months ago.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I just don't think that there's, whenever you say that, you look at, all right, what teams in the West is it like? Oh, there's no way they could beat them. OKC is a great team and a hell of a team, but I can't sit there and be shocked if Phoenix beat them in a playoff series because Phoenix has KD and Booker who have more experience, even though I love SGA, and a lot of the young guys on OKC.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I said, I'm not going to be shocked if KD and Booker beat anybody else in the West in the series. And then you go, well, then if they get to the finals, I can't sit there and be shocked no matter how good I think Boston or Cleveland are. I can't sit there and be completely shocked if they beat either one of them in one series.
Right.
So, I'm not going to sit there and be surprised, but I'm going to say they're definitely got better from what they are right now.
Yeah.
Whether that's trade or just more cohesion from the group.
Very fair. Very fair. So we only got 3 more teams that I really wanted to touch on, so we can hopefully, sprint a little bit to the finish line here. The next team I wanted to talk about was Memphis. Also
yes.
in the kind of good
Yeah. Oh yeah.
territory. And my question for them is, are they back to where they were in 2022? If we rewind the clocks back about 2 years, everyone, this is basically what the Timberwolves were last year. That's what they were. They were like, hey, they're the up-and-coming team. They got the young star. They got other players that are coming up alongside them. Ja Morant is bringing these players up with them. He's got the mentality. He's got the work ethic. He's got obviously the output. He's going to carry
He's
them.
got the gritty. Got the gritty on the sideline.
He's got the
sure.
gritty, which apparently is only cool if you're like a professional athlete, because to me it's like the lamest shit of all time, but as soon as a professional athlete does it, it's cool.
I got to tell you, I saw Fede Valverde hit the gritty the other day after scoring while wearing the armband, and I thought that was a low moment.
Yeah.
I thought that was a low point.
So, like, are they back to that point? Have they ascended past that point, or are they still a work in progress as far as going back to being a legitimate Western Conference contender?
I think they're just about there, but I can't quite say they're absolutely there. And the reason why I think they are just about there is because the thing that I loved about them in that 21-22 range is the amount of depth that they had.
Yep.
Ja missed a lot of games that year, and I think they were like 16-4 without him, or something like that, of the 20 games that he missed that year. And I don't have those numbers exact, so please don't fact check me. But they were somewhere around that. And this year, kind of the same thing. Ja's only played in 10 games, and they're 13-7 right now. Like, the thing about Ja missing pretty much, and the thing is, even when he's playing, he's still only playing 27 minutes a game. Like, I was shocked. You talked about this kind of analysis that we did beforehand. I was shocked to find out Santi Aldama is playing more minutes per game than Ja Morant right now. Like, Santi Aldama has played the second most minutes of any Grizzly this year, and they've got him at the 3, which is just crazy. But with Ja being out last year, for I think he played 5 games, 10 games. Jaren Jackson Jr., his offensive game took a huge jump, and that's continued. That's carried over into this season. He's the leading scorer. They're kind of running a lot of the offense through him, whether he's got this great, maybe catch it at the nail, maybe 10, 12 feet, and then he can just kind of, it's almost like a floater, jumper, runner type of thing where he just shoots it with his left hand and it just goes in an insanely high amount of time. It's like a half drive kind of. So I really like that part of his game. I think he's become a much better offensive player than I would have expected, when they were playing, in that 21-22 run. So I think that's the reason why you could think that they could maybe even exceed what they were. And then I'm just always going to love Desmond Bane. Like, Desmond Bane
That's your boy.
He is. I haven't gotten an NBA jersey in probably a good 10, would I say 10 years? Yeah, probably close to 10 years or so. But I'm thinking about maybe copping a Bane jersey. But maybe right before a deep playoff run. That way I don't look like I'm jumping on the bandwagon. But yeah, so I like the Grizzlies. I mean, shoot. They just find guys off the streets like Scottie Pippen Jr.
Yep.
Like who was sitting there lining up to get Scottie Pippen Jr. Jay Huff,
Jalen Wells.
Oh my God, Wells, dude, Wells. I was watching I don't even remember who they were playing. This dude Wells hit 4 threes in a row and didn't give a fuck at all. Like, he was just shooting, making. Guy was closing out hard. Like, that's the thing. Wells is almost the exact same thing as Desmond Bane. Maybe not the same on-ball creator, but God, to have the depth and the options that they have. That's the thing. In a playoff series, you're not going to play 10 or 11 guys. That's just not realistic. But the fact that you have options, some nights you need an energy big, so you can go with a Brandon Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Some games you need that banger, so you go with a Zach Edey type. You need a defensive guard, so you play Smart more. You need more scoring, you play Bane or Wells or something like that. Like, they just have so many interchangeable options. So
yeah.
I really love Memphis, and I think if Ja can put together a 15 to 20 game stretch where he can just play consistently, then I'm really in on them, because he's been having a lot of knee problems this year, which does kind of concern me, considering the type of player that he is and the way he plays the game. I don't see knee injuries for him getting better over the course of a season or career.
Yeah, and they have zero. Like kind of going back to the depth piece you were talking about. They have zero players playing over 30 minutes a game. They have two scorers that are in the low 20s, Jaren Jackson Jr. and then Ja Morant, and then they have 5 guys that are averaging in that sort of low. I don't even know what you call them because they're not teen numbers, but guys averaging 10, 11, or 10 to 12 points a game. And so it just seems like a very sustainable model, especially for a regular season. Now that often leads to that sort of postseason weirdness where it's like this team's a 3 seed, but they're not really built for the playoffs. But
classic Toronto Raptors, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry.
Exactly, where it's like, we have a couple of guys. We have like 6 or 7 guys that are like really good players, and then we have 3 or 4 guys that can come off the bench and be pretty decent, but we don't have those really high-level guys, and even our guys that are pretty good aren't really like pushing to be great players.
But just real quickly on that, I just think Jaws is at that level. He just needs to play for a consistent enough period of time. Like he's at a higher level than DeRozan or Lowry or any of those guys were at that time. So I think Ja is a true playoff creator. He just, like I said, needs to play for 2 straight months or something like that.
All right, now we're gonna ascend into our final tier. The teams that are looking around and being like, man, did you know we were gonna be this good? Did you know we were gonna win this many games? Starting off with Washington. They won a game at home and on the road, which I think is pretty impressive, having the same record home and away, 1-8. They've lost 14 straight games, which is I don't even know if that's possible. But
hey, man, we're fine. We're right where we want to be. Come on,
true.
Flag, come on.
That's true. Exactly where you want to be.
Flag, come on.
So Washington and the Hornets, I thought were the 2 teams that I thought were really in this tier because I don't know if you know this, LaMelo Ball is the best player in the entire NBA.
I was so shocked to see that Charlotte's record was 6-3. I swear I must have watched all 6 of their wins because I've seen them win 3 games legitimately, and I'm like, Charlotte, could they be okay? Because then I'm like, I'm kind of the same as the listener here, right? I'm not going to sit here and say I'm watching every single game on League Pass every night, so it's hard for me to keep up with all 30. But a week or 2 ago, and people were like, "Man, LaMelo's really ascended." I'm like, "Shit, how's Charlotte doing? What? It must be like 10-5 or something." And I'm like, 6-13. What the hell?
Yeah.
Like this is the exact same Charlotte team we've seen for the last 20 years since Jordan's been the owner, really.
Yeah, so I just wanted to shout out those 2 teams because, they kind of attack. Well, Washington's just funny because it's your team, but the Hornets is really one of the frightening parts about the NBA to me personally, where it's like, oh, this guy's now this, and this guy's awesome, and it's like, okay, they must be winning some games, like you said, and they're not. But the 2 teams I definitely want to highlight were Houston and Cleveland, of course. All right, so Houston. Explain Houston to me as a person that has not watched them at all this year.
Look, they are like I don't know if I can say they're a better version of what we just talked about with the Grizzlies, but it's just a bit different in that I think the depth pieces are probably better on Houston, that is, but the top 2 guys or the top guy definitely better on Memphis. And the thing about Houston is they're defending the hell out of it right now. I think they're number 1 in defense right now. Shit. Sorry, 2nd in defense. They're 2nd in defense right now. Offense still a work in progress, but God, they got some guys, man. Like they just have athleticism all over the court. They've got super switchable wings. Tari Eason has like ascended to a guy who is going to get a good second contract. Like not just get a second contract, he's going to be making 15 to 20 million, and it's going to be a legitimately good deal. Jabari Smith Jr. probably been the one guy who I've been like, maybe kind of slightly disappointed in. He's playing 28 minutes a game for him, but doesn't really feel essential. And that's one of those weird dynamics that Jalen Rose and Bill Simmons used to talk about, where the guy who's drafted in the 20s ends up being better than the guy you took 3rd overall. Mm-hmm. And it's great that, right. It's great that the guy you took in the 20s, Tari Eason, is really good. But if you're the Rockets front office, are you excited that he's better than Jabari Smith Jr.? Probably not. But and that's the thing. Jabari being kind of up and down, or really more so down,
Jabari's
hasn't
better
even
than
affected
Jabari?
them. Oh, Jabari Parker?
No, you said Jabari Smith is better than Jabari Smith.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Tari has been better than Jabari.
Okay.
You can see where I can get where that's a little bit of a tongue
A
twister.
little bit, yeah.
No Diddy. And then my favorite guy on the team, Cam Whitmore, hasn't even been playing.
Yeah.
Like he's only played 8 games, played 10 minutes a game. So, they have so much depth that I'll be fascinated to see how they can keep everybody happy. I do think one thing to look out for is, could there be, like, if they're really continuing to do good, could there be a trade? And the two guys who I think that could be available for them would be Jimmy Butler if Miami goes south a bit, or Brandon Ingram for the Pelicans if the Pelicans just continue to fall off and fall off. Both of those, maybe a third guy, Cam Johnson from Brooklyn, if they wanted to do something not quite as flashy. But I think that those are some guys, just because they have so many wings.
Right.
I mean, we didn't even talk about Amen Thompson, who literally looks like Darrell Revis in 2007. Like he's not letting guys get past him. He's blocking shots. He's making steals. Like and I'll give a shout out to Marquise Dancy. I don't know if he genuinely saw this coming or if he was just doing the homer thing of, of course my squad's going to be nice this year. But he was telling me Houston was going to be a guaranteed top 6 playoff team. It looks like it right now, but man, the West is so tough. They're just going to have to keep it up. But yeah, and another thing, like Jalen Green hasn't even been great. So like, it's funny. I'm sitting here saying how these top draft picks that they haven't been great, haven't been knocking out of the park, and they're still 14-6 and second in the West right now. So that just kind of shows you more of the depth that they have and the options that they have, which I'm just in love with.
Right. So, and they don't have a 20-point score. So it's kind of like what we were talking about with Memphis, where it's like that can be a good thing, especially in the regular season, because you're not relying on one guy night to night. But then once you get into those playoff series where it gets down to, hey, we're playing 7 games we're playing 7 guys because it's game 4 and we're down 2-1 on the road, and so it's kind of like, all right, well, throw the ball to X guy and just hope that he can create a shot for himself or someone else because they've already figured us out, and now we're just playing who has the best guys. It kind of gets awkward when you don't have a go-to guy or two that's like really a legitimately really great scorer and or creator.
Yeah, and I will just say straight up, I'm more nervous about that for Houston in the playoffs than Memphis. Just because at least with Memphis, we've seen them in the playoffs a couple times. Houston, I mean, Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks, those guys have been in the playoffs, but those aren't going to – we're really looking at, hey, Jalen Green, Sengun even, like, hey, can you guys kind of create or be the creative hub of the offense in a close game? That's something I still have a question about, but regular season, I love this team.
Yeah. Awesome. So now we get to talk about the last team. All right? My favorite team.
I just wasted hot air for the last hour just so we could get to Cleveland. So let's do it.
God, man, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I used to pray for times like this to grind like this, you know. It's so. I never thought I'd see the day where I saw a legitimately good Cavs team without LeBron James on it. Just for reference, I was born in the year 2000. The reason I became a Cavs fan was because I was like, oh, this dude LeBron James is in the NBA and he plays for the Cavs. He's really good and he's young. He's my favorite player, so therefore they're my favorite team. And literally every single happy basketball moment in my entire life has been because of LeBron James. So it's just to see a team that's like legitimately good. Now, I'm not going to be that guy that's like, all right, we're going to win the title now type of thing. But just to even, if we got an Eastern Conference Finals run out of this year and like a legitimate one, not like we got to the Eastern Conference Finals and got swept. Like a legitimate, like even we lose in 6, we lose in 7, that kind of a thing. It would just like mean more to me than anything. And also the thing that means more to me than anything is just like the fact that we have legitimate guys on our team, like guys that I get like excited about. Like Ty Jerome is somehow putting up like 12 points in like 19 minutes. I don't even know I don't even know how he's doing it.
Yeah.
This dude's literally shooting 53% from three and stuff like that. And like on any given night, like Dean Wade might even put up a couple of numbers. And it's not like we're doing.
I like that you said guys that get you excited, and you named two white guys back to back.
And
so
then,
I like that.
Sam Merrill, obviously, I like him for obvious reasons. But like, I kind of like Georges Niang. It's kind of 50-50. It's kind of 50-50 with me. And it's not like we're doing the Sun shit from like the late 2000s where it's like, well, Garland's playing 40 minutes, Mobley's playing 40 minutes, Mitchell's playing 40 minutes. Everyone, we have three guys that play over 30, but it's only 31 and 30 minutes a game for those guys, and it's just, and it's not even the way that we've won in the past couple of years. Because the past couple of years, it's been like we're the best defensive team in the league. Give the ball to Donovan Mitchell in the fourth quarter and hope we win 93-92. It's not even that. We have legitimately one of the best offenses in the entire league. Right now, we're third in offensive rating. Now, we have played literally the worst schedule in the entire league. However, we are still playing the East, so we're going to continue. We're still going to continue to play a not good schedule. Like we get to play
You still got Washington on.
We still got Washington a decent amount of times. We still got the Sixers. We still got the Raptors, the Hornets, the Bulls. I mean, even if you look within our division, you know, the Bulls, the Bucks, as we said, haven't been playing well. The Pacers have taken a step back. You know, things like that. So it's exciting. I'm not going to sit here and be like, again, I'm not going to crown their ass, but it's just super, super fun to just actually have a team that's like, you know what, we're probably going to win tonight. I've never really had that feeling outside of LeBron.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the thing I've been most excited about with Cleveland has been, you know, in the beginning of the season, maybe the first 10 games or so, it was Darius Garland who was like kind of the crunch time closer running the offense. And now it's kind of been like him and Mitchell have both been kind of taking turns more so in the clutch minutes for the few games that Cavs have had that are clutch, because they've also just been beating the hell out of some teams too. So, you know, it's been they've been able to share the ball, I think, a lot better than they have at any point the last year or 2 years. And a large part of that has to do with Mitchell signing the extension and, you know, saying he wants to be in Cleveland, which I don't know if I completely believe, but we'll ride that for, you know, the next year or two for sure, because he's locked in for a bit. And then Mobley has been, it's not even that he's just been a better offensive player, he's just been more aggressive. Like I've seen him multiple times just duck ins right over the front of the rim, catch the ball, turn and dunk. Like stuff that maybe a year or two ago he would turn it into like a fadeaway little 8-footer or something, or maybe just like trying a little jump hook or something like that. But like now he's legitimately, you know, he's like, hey, I'm really good and I know it. Like that's the way how he feels like he's playing right now.
Yeah.
3-point shot still isn't, you know, look, it's better. I mean, he's shooting 32%, but he's taking like 2 a game. So it's not like it's still not a weapon for him. But at the same time, he's become more physically imposing offensively and more confident, I feel like, this season. And like you said, the offense has really been what's been carrying it for Cleveland. Like 3rd in offense, 12th in defense, actually. So, you know, that's kind of maybe the exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that, and also maybe the exciting part where it's like, look, we know we can be a good defensive team. Let's pick that up a bit more, and then before you know it, you know, we're top 5 in both categories. That's a recipe for a title team, or, like you said, certainly a conference finalist, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So I mean, even if you think about sort of, I completely forgot what I was going to say, but I'm just too excited right now. But
I was going to say you're just.
Yeah, but like when I look at our roster, like there's not a lot of guys that like stand out. Like when you go down the minutes, it's like Mitchell, Mobley, Garland, but then you look, oh, that's what it was, Jared Allen. When you have a guy that can be like a legitimate rim runner, not like Rudy Gobert, for example, it's like, oh, well, he protects the rim, but no one then goes around and says, and then he's also a legitimate rim runner. He can do little tip-ins and dunks. It's like he kind of just scores because he's 7'2". Like, he just so happens to score because if you're that big, you're just going to be able to put the ball in the basket somehow. But, like, Jared Allen is like
Right.
can be a legitimate rim runner as well as protecting the rim
Absolutely.
on the other side. I mean, he's averaging 14 points a game on 70% shooting, which I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
impressive because he's an impressive shooter, but it's like because he does what he's good at. Like he literally stands under the basket like this, and they either throw a lob to him or he catches the rebound and just dunks it again. And that's something, getting those second chance points or those really easy buckets when you need momentum to shift or when you're trying to stop a run from the other team, especially come playoff time. Those are the things that you
Yeah.
need. Like if you're not getting those second chance points, you're not getting those easy buckets. People are able to double team Garland or Mitchell because they know there's no one inside that can really punish them at all. It's like, not saying Jared Allen's going to be Hakeem in there, but he's going to be able to score,
Yeah.
2, 3 straight buckets if you just decide we're going to leave him wide open. So
Yeah.
again, Eastern Conference
And-
Finals is kind of the goal. Roll the ball out. Hopefully, we win a couple of games.
Yeah, and the thing is that I really like about Allen and Mobley as a combo is they're both big men who make free throws.
Yep.
Allen's like 75%. Mobley's like mid 80s this year, which has been amazing for him. He's also getting to the line a career high 4 times a game, which it's great that it's a career high, but the fact that it's 4 a game is slightly concerning, but we'll take it.
Yeah, we don't get to the
So
line
yeah,
literally at all.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But that's the NBA
and
right now.
I feel like Mitchell can get to the line when he needs to. Maybe I'm just thinking about that game 7 against Orlando where I think he took like 20 free throws. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like when we were talking about kind of continuing that Memphis Houston conversation that we had, if we talk about Cleveland, like I trust Mitchell as a playoff guy more than anyone else on those other 2 teams. So maybe that's just because I like Mitchell too much. I don't know, but I think Cleveland has a really good thing going.
Yeah.
I would just love them. Maybe if I'm nitpicking, slightly more consistent play out of like the Karis LeVert, Niang, Okoro, Dean Wade. Like, can we get 2 of those guys who we feel awesome about come playoff time? Versus like, hey, these 4 guys will be able to scrounge together 55 minutes for us.
Yeah.
Like, can we say, hey, there are 2 guys we want to give 25 minutes to that we feel great about?
All
That'd
right.
be my
And then there's the true X factor in the team, and that's Tristan Thompson. Came on,
yes!
played 21 minutes the other night against the Pelicans and had 8 points. So that was pretty impressive. I didn't even know that dude was still alive, much less in the league, until I turned on a Cavs game the other day and saw his fat ass out there.
KGDC MVP.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. So kind of to wrap everything up, if you were to say one team that when we do our halfway report of this year,
No.
one team that's going to be much higher as far as the tiers, it's going to be in a much higher tier, and one team that's going to be in a much lower tier, that's going to have the biggest progression and the biggest regression from now till about trade deadline-ish
midway.
time.
Yeah, halfway point of the season.
Yeah.
Team that I'm gonna say will be worse. I'm gonna say the Brooklyn Nets, currently 9-11. Cam Thomas, I think it was just announced, is gonna miss. I think about a month with a hamstring injury. He had been a really good scorer for him. I'm not the biggest Cam Thomas fan, but he had been lethal for them. And also, they had a lot of guys who were just kind of overachieving and just playing really well for what they are. A team that I think could continue or that could be better than where they are right now. I don't want to go back to the well that we talked about earlier, but I legitimately think Minnesota will be, at a tier above.
Mm-hmm.
I think Minnesota will just be much better the next time we look at this. So, yeah, those I would say, maybe even a slight consideration for Indiana, because I still really like the Pacers. Like I still think, like I said, the guys are still there that made that Eastern Conference Finals run. They just need to play slightly better.
Right.
So, I would go with those kind of 2, 3-ish type teams. Who you got? Who are you thinking about?
Team that's going to be worse for sure, and this is just by virtue of, like, I guess more reverting to the mean. I would probably say, honestly, probably the Cavs, because I don't think they're going to be winning 85% of their game for the rest of the year. But, like, as far as a team that's going to legitimately regress, I'd probably say more the Rockets. Again, I think that that regular season mold is going to help them early in the season, but then when it kind of gets into the dog days, they pick up an injury or two. maybe they're ending up, instead of winning 70% of their games, they're still they're going about 500. So finishing in around like middle of the West, like maybe 6-ish seed is probably what I project for them. And then the biggest climbers, I think Minnesota as well. I just think that their team is too good. And again, they're still figuring things out. They made a blockbuster this summer, and it's not easy to just make that blockbuster and then just instantly be like, all right, now we all know everything, how to play with each other. Let's just go do it.
Especially with how close it was to the start of the season.
Right. Exactly. So to just put a bow on this episode, Chad, I got some really, really, really bad news for you. It's happening again. Okay? Rashford Brace.
Oh,
he's back.
Yeah.
He's now the young. Yeah. He's now the young English talent again, even though he's 26.
Yeah. He's going to continue to break records for being the oldest young guy in the history of sport.
Yeah, he's taken the title. I say he's taken the title from Lingard. So, yeah. Next week, I think we're getting into some NFL stuff next week. We're kind of still projecting. I don't know. I really enjoyed this basketball talk. We're kind of at a weird point of the year where it's like soccer's still in gear, but it's hard to get a flow because of all the international breaks and stuff like that. Yeah. Basketball, kind of like we talked about at the very beginning, there's not really much meaningful basketball right now, so it's hard to like really get attached to things. Football, everything's kind of sort of set in stone. Like we know the teams that are and are not going to make the playoffs. Now we just kind of need some official sort of final standings for it before we really start deep diving into it. So let us know if there's something more specific that you want us to talk about, maybe a narrative rather than like a specific sport or something. I would love to hear it. I'd love to have those little more fun ideas rather than just give a rundown of, well, I think this team's good and I think that team is bad. So anything that you have an idea about, please let us know. And again, this has been the Arch Manning episode 16 of the Glue Guys podcast. We will see you guys next week for episode 17, the Alexander Zinchenko episode. Have a good rest of your day. See you guys later.